Hello and welcome once again to the next of our Bible studies. We are on day 139. We are still looking at the statutes and laws of old Israel, and particularly laws relating to human behaviour towards other humans. And at the moment we're looking at sexual crimes and harsh punishments. Today's passages are Deuteronomy chapter 22, verses 20 to 22, and chapter 23, verses 1 to 2. I'll turn you round so you can see the text. If it is proved that a woman was not a virgin when she married, she must be taken to the door of her father's house, where the men of the city must execute her by stoning. She had done something that is shameful among our people by having sex before marriage whilst she was still living in her parents' home. In this way, you will rid yourselves of an evil. If a man is caught in the act of having sex with someone else's wife, they should both be executed. That's how you will get rid of the evil. No male who has been castrated or whose penis has been severed is allowed to be one of Yahweh's people. All of these laws, which I have quoted, I've only quoted a sample of here, they all seem unnecessarily harsh to us. A few verses before this passage, a severe whipping and a hefty fine had been prescribed for a husband who falsely accuses his wife of unfaithfulness. Perhaps he had wanted to obtain a divorce, which of course would be refused to him because he had lied. And in today's verses, we see the death penalty prescribed for a wife who might have just had a youthful indiscretion. The risk of injustice in such cases must have been severe, since the presence of blood on the wedding night never was a reliable proof of virginity. Adultery was to be proved by 2 or more witnesses catching a couple in the act, and summary execution was the usual punishment for both parties. Other laws against seduction and rape follow, though later in the same chapter, the forcing of a rapist to marry an underage girl he had attacked, that's chapter 2 verses 28 and 29, does not seem at all like a just conclusion. It smacks of an obsession with paternity rights and the clarity of inheritance rules. About such matters as these, we live in much more enlightened days. Failed marriages and sexual indiscretions are dealt with much more humanely among us, and largely this is done not with the rights of the man concerned in mind, but rather with the welfare of the children, whoever their biological father is. Looking now at the end of this morning's passage, we do not know what was in the minds of the first Deuteronomic scholars when they wrote about men whose genitals had been mutilated or removed. It hardly seems fair to those who had been mutilated in early childhood or by some gruesome accident to exclude them from the community, which makes me wonder whether they might have had in mind some pagan ritual practice which they have omitted to describe. This verse is the first of a number that ban a number of different classes of people from attending assemblies for worship, such as those born out of wedlock and their children, and descendants of some former enemy nations, but explicitly and surprisingly excluding from the ban those descended from Edomites and Egyptians. We have no idea why. These laws are so far removed from our culture that we find it hard to excuse their existence. They depart so far from Jesus' love God and love your neighbour and do as you would be done by, that we judge them to be putting potentially innocent individuals in the wrong. This is why law-based religions like Judaism and Islam rely heavily on the services of their religious courts, who can sometimes cleverly find their way around such difficulties. I am glad that I was brought up in a faith of grace and forgiveness. Tomorrow I will find for you some more kindly laws in the book of Deuteronomy, and I'll see you then.